A shooter armed with two AR-style weapons and a handgun killed 3 students and 3 adults at a private Christian school in Nashville yesterday. Police have identified the shooter as Audrey Elizabeth Hale, 28, of Nashville. Hale was shot and killed by police who responded to the Covenant School, a small academy housed within a Presbyterian church that served about 200 students from preschool to 6th grade. The assailant bought 7 guns legally, including 3 used in the shooting. Her parents said she should never have owned guns. The top Federal Reserve official investigating Silicon Valley Bank faced 2 hours of intense questions from lawmakers today. Regulators told senators that a textbook case of mismanagement and not wokeism led to the bank's failure, and that SVB allowed risks to build up to the point that the bank collapsed. A fire broke out at a migrant detention facility just south of the U.S. border, killing at least 39 people in one of the deadliest tragedies in years involving foreigners crossing Mexico to reach the United States. And the parent of a 2nd grader at North Shore Elementary in St. Petersburg, Florida, has filed a formal objection against the film of Ruby Bridges and the story of how she became a civil rights icon by wading through a white mob to integrate an elementary school in the South in 1960. Now, this parent filed this objection after the movie was played in her class as a part of a Black History Month lesson. In the parent's complaint, she says the film is inappropriate for 2nd graders because it might teach them that, quote, white people hate Black people, end quote. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie sharply criticized Donald Trump on yesterday during his trip to New Hampshire as he kept the door open to entering the GOP primary against his former ally and signaled he would decide by June. And Mike Pence must testify to the January 6th grand jury, according to a federal court ruling today. This is the latest setback to Pence's team's efforts to limit his testimony to any agency investigating the January 6th insurrection. Now, note that he talks about the insurrection in his latest book. The White House expressed relief Monday after a divisive plan to overhaul Israel's judiciary system was put on hold, delaying, at least for the moment, the prospect of a tumultuous democratic breakdown by one of America's closest global allies. This is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. In this hour, I'm joined by 2 brilliant contributors, American University professor Dr. Omekongo DiBinga and director of the Pat Brown Institute for Public Affairs at Cal State University, Raphael Sonenshein. Also in this hour for our daily legal segment, KBLA Justice correspondent Dion Raymond will be here for the latest in the federal bribery trial of LA City Council member Mark Ridley Thomas. This is day 3 of jury deliberations. We'll get the latest from inside that courtroom with Dion Raymond. And in my second hour, investigative journalist and podcast host say disgraced Empire actor and singer Jussie Smollett is innocent. Jarrett Hill and Chelli Stanley first broke this story on the Fanti podcast. They will join me to break it all down. But before I bring on my guests, here's what I'm thinking in real time. A Tennessee congressman, his name is Tim Burchett. He has won Vanity Fair's award for the most effed up, and I do mean effed up, response to the Covenant School shooting. Hours after 3 children and 3 adults were murdered, this Republican congressman beat out all of his conservative peers to win the award for his response to the shooting. Note, this is the 38th mass shooting since the start of this month. Speaking to reporters outside the Capitol, Burchett said that what happened was, quote, a horrible, horrible situation, end quote. And then he declared, quote, again, we're not going to fix it. Emphasis added. Now, to be clear, Burchett wasn't saying this to underscore the collective frustration and feelings of rage that millions of Americans feel for politicians who just continue to allow these types of mass shootings to occur. Those that offer thoughts and prayers and then refuse to pass meaningful gun control legislation. No, he was saying we're not going to fix it because he thinks that's the correct course of action. He went on to say criminals are going to be criminals. He added, my daddy fought in the Second World War. He fought in the Pacific. He fought the Japanese. And he told me, buddy, if somebody wants to take you out and doesn't mind losing their life, there's not a whole heck of a lot you can do about it. This congressman went on to say, I don't see any real role that we, meaning Congress, could do other than mess things up. Honestly, because of the situation, he says, I don't think our criminals are going to stop from getting guns. Now, I should note, he did come up with one solution. He said, Americans can just homeschool our kids. Duh. Now, I don't even know where to start with this congressman. This is the same guy that is concerned about men wearing dresses, and he's taken action to support a Tennessee law that bans drag shows. I guess he cares more about folks dressing in drag than 9-year-olds and teachers being slaughtered in a Christian school. You really, really, really can't make this stuff up. More of Areva Martin in real time when we come forward with today's trending news and my expert contributors right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
Need legal help? Attorney Jovan Blacknell is an aggressive trial attorney specializing in criminal defense and civil litigation. Look no further than the law office of Jovan Blacknell. From personal injury to criminal defense, Jovan Blacknell has the knowledge to protect your rights. The law office of Jovan Blacknell understands the stress and anxiety that come with legal issues. That's why the law office of Jovan Blacknell supports the right to a fair trial. For Los Angeles Council member Mark Ridley Thomas, are you facing a legal battle? Log on to fightforjustice.com. Don't go through it alone. Let the law office of Jovan Blacknell fight for your rights. Log on to fightforjustice.com. Let the law office of Jovan Blacknell take the worry and stress out of your case. Call 310-469-9117 today for a free consultation. That's 310-469-9117 or log on to fightforjustice.com. Law office of Jovan Blacknell, where experience and dedication make the difference.
Look. Our Weekly Los Angeles is the largest audited Black newspaper in the state of California with a distribution of over 50,000 copies weekly. Pick up a copy every Thursday to get the latest news on African American communities of LA. You can also keep up with what's going on in Los Angeles and surrounding cities by going to www.ourweekly.com. The Our Weekly website is updated daily with the current news about us and for us. For your advertising needs, Our Weekly offers economical advertising packages to fit your budget. Feel free to call Our Weekly Los Angeles at 323-905-1300 or visit the website at www.ourweekly.com. Our Weekly Los Angeles, reporting news that matters to you.
King C. Gillette is the modern man's answer to their facial hair. A complete set of precision tools and quality care products fit for your beard style. There's the King C. Gillette Beard Thickener that strengthens the facial hair you already have while increasing the volume of each strand for a noticeably thicker look. And with daily use, it maintains thickness with a lightweight fragrance with the King C. Gillette signature scent. Master your style with King C. Gillette.
Whether you own a local business or a global one, you're always looking for ways to position your operation to create opportunities and move on them faster. With Bank of America, you get access to experts, award-winning insights, and business solutions so powerful, you'll make every move matter, locally and globally. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Copyright 2023 Bank.
I'm back and I'm joined by, I guess I should call it the dream team. It's Dr. Omekongo DiBinga and Raphael Sonenshein, aka Rafe. And these two guys have been on together before, and I am so glad to have them back. Their expertise and brilliance are needed on a heavy news day like today. So let's start with you, Rafe. You're from New Jersey. Chris Christie's from New Jersey, former governor. He's out talking a lot of smack about Donald Trump. He says, look, if you're going to debate this guy, you need someone on the stage who can do to him what I did to Marco Rubio, because that's the only thing that's going to defeat Donald Trump. What are you feeling about Chris Christie, who obviously is visiting New Hampshire and is trying to, I guess, take the temperature of the Republican Party and the Republican base, and saying he's the guy that can stand up to Donald Trump?
He's half right. He's right that the only way to beat Donald Trump is to go toe-to-toe New Jersey against New York City and really lay into him. But Chris Christie is not the guy to do it. I would say that I have a better chance of getting the Republican nomination than Chris Christie, and I'm a Democrat. He has no base in either party. His main base of support is the booking agents for CNN and MSNBC, because he talks a great game. But Areva, the funny thing about it is his analysis is exactly correct, except that he's not the person to do it. You cannot do this parsing that everybody's doing. Like, I kind of dislike him, I kind of disapprove of him, but I'll vote for him if he's the nominee. I would say right now, Trump is the overwhelming, if not 100% favorite to win the Republican nomination, even if he's in jail. I don't see anybody, including DeSantis, who's in a position to do what Christie says ought to be done. Now, Christie will try it, and he'll get some great coverage on cable news, but he's not going to win a lot of votes. But he might show the way for somebody else to finally figure out how to do it.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, Dr. DiBinga. Might Chris Christie, with his sharp attacks and his fearless, personality, what he says, he's been a supporter of Donald Trump. He's been all over the board. But let's assume he really is ready to go in on him. Might that, clear the way for someone else that's less chaotic or less, a chaos agent like Donald Trump to win the Republican primary?
I think it's possible. And I think that one of the things that Christie's doing is he's trying to make a pitch towards independence as well. You see in places like New York, you have more people who are Republican identifying as independent, and people are seeing that, independence can be a very important swing vote depending on the state that you're in. I think we have to know he went after Rubio, with that takedown, but then he finished like 6th in the primary or something, just a few days later. So, Rafi's absolutely right when he says that he's not the one, but that blueprint does matter. I mean, everybody's putting all of this attention towards Ron DeSantis, but he made a couple of references about Stormy Daniels here and there, but he hasn't fully taken on Trump. And when you look at Nikki Haley and Mike Pence, they are going to go nowhere near attacking Trump. But I think that they are making room for somebody we just haven't really paid attention to, who could really come in and do some real damage if they see that the Christie model could work, even though it's not going to work for Christie.
Yeah, it's pretty clear he's just grasping for some relevance, and sitting on cable news on Sunday doesn't seem to be doing it for him, maybe the way it was a year or two ago. Just not enough eyes on him, not getting enough attention. So let me take a punch at Donald Trump. We'll see what happens. Obviously, we're going to continue to follow that story. But I want to ask you, Dr. DiBinga, about this complaint, this parent in Florida, not surprising, Florida, talking about DeSantis. She says, look, she didn't even want second graders during Black History Month to watch a movie about Ruby Bridges and, her story about integrating the public schools in the South in the 1960s, that movie is so heavy, so deep, so negative, she says, and it's inappropriate according to this parent. She's just going to teach little white kids to hate Black people, or it teaches them that white people hate Black people. What do you think of this parent's complaint?
There are so many places I want to go with this, but just the main things that are bothering me. When I was teaching on the K-12 level, if I was going to show something that might be inappropriate, I would send a letter home that a parent could deem inappropriate. I would send a letter home to this teacher, to the parents, saying what's going to happen. And the parent had the option to not have their child come watch that class. That was a singular parental decision. These parents now, they feel like they're so empowered that they can stop all students from seeing something that they might be uncomfortable with. And this whole thing about making white people feel bad, why not take the Ruby Bridges story and focus on the one white woman teacher who decided to educate her in a school when everybody else was protesting? That was a white upstander, not a bystander. Why not celebrate her? So these people are grasping at straws. You see across the country, they're trying to push these parental rights bills for teachers, for parents to know what's in the curriculum, to parents to know what's in the budget, for parents to know what their kids are learning every single day. How about you show up to parent-teacher night? You can find out all of that stuff. How about you read the budget at a school board meeting? You can find all of that stuff out. But here we are, and this is what I've been warning white parents about. This is my last thing. If you're not going to speak up when people are coming for the teaching of Black history, it's just a matter of time before they come for anything else that relates to your history as well. Because we see now they're banning books on the Holocaust like Mouse. We see that a teacher got fired for showing David, the Michelangelo statue in art class. That ain't Black history. So once they feel like they got control of the agenda, they're going to come for everything. And so it should not just be Black people who are outraged about this. It should not just be people who are quote unquote liberal. People are coming for control of our school and classrooms in every way, shape, or form, and we have to stand up and fight it.
Yeah, what's crazy about this, and thank you for saying as a teacher, when you did K through 12, you would tell parents, look, we're going to show this movie or we're going to have this lesson, and parents could decide to keep their kids at home. Hey, let's be honest, in the 60s, when Ruby Bridges was trying to go to school, a certain number of white people did hate Black people.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they hate Black people today, but Rafe, how are we going to teach what happened in this country if we try to whitewash that fact? That's just factual. The teacher isn't making that up. Ruby Bridges didn't make it up. She was just a little girl in the first, second grade trying to go to school. Why are parents, white parents in Florida in particular, this parent in particular, so afraid of their kids learning that history?
Well, I don't know if you saw the Rosa Parks story where the publisher agreed to make the story read as follows. Rosa Parks got on a bus. They asked her not to sit in that seat. She refused. She went to jail. Boom, she's a hero with no mention of race whatsoever.
I did see that.
Now, what it does indicate is the power of Black history. Just like the power of the vote. You don't try to take somebody's vote away if you're not afraid of their vote. And you don't try to bury history that could affect the search for equality today. So this is a huge challenge. Now, here's my concern that I really gets me going is publishers should not back down in the face of this.
That's right.
They should not be sending two versions of the Rosa Parks story, send one to California and one to Florida. And
Right.
the states that are teaching the real story should make sure that that has some consequences for these publishers. They should, if you back down to this stuff, it really sends a message that commerce is the only thing that matters. I mean, I don't think those publishers care about whether what is taught. They want to get their books in there. Well, I think it'd be nice if a few of them said, well, I think maybe you should find another publisher, because we're not going to change it, or we're going to send it in, take it or not. But that's
I saw that story that you talked about, where publishers trying to get the business from the Department of Education in Florida, thinking they're going to get ahead of the Florida, anti-woke laws. Say, well, we'll just tell the story of Rosa Parks and we won't even mention the word race. As you said, she just got on a bus. Someone didn't want her to sit in a seat. They said, get up. She said, no, I'm not getting up. And next thing you know, Rosa Parks is an icon. We don't know how.
What an inspiring story.
Right.
Like, you're sitting there, even a second grader be going like, why are we reading about this lady? Like, who is this chick? Like, what did she do?
My mama didn't get up from the bus yesterday, right?
She ain't in this book.
That's right.
It's so insane. And you're right. Where is the integrity? Where is the, if you're a book publisher for elementary school curriculum, you're teaching, you're publishing curriculum for students, you're just going to bend any way the wind blows. So the next, if DeSantis gets voted out and there's a more sensible governor that understands and appreciates history, you're going to rewrite the whole book, recall all the books with Rosa Parks, not standing up about race. Where does that lead us? I mean, and you're right, Dr. DiBinga, if you're not incensed by this, you are asleep at the switch. because today it's Black folks, it's Black history, as you said. It's already, Jewish history with the Holocaust. We know they're going after LGBT. I have a niece that's a lesbian. She wrote me a text and said, why are they going after trans? She just couldn't understand, like, what has trans people done to conservatives? She just doesn't get why they are so incensed by them. And, we haven't talked about this shooter in Tennessee. They've been dropping this line that she's trans. We've heard it, but, I haven't seen, and maybe you have, and I'll ask both of you, have you seen any of the news outlets make a big deal out of it? But I can only imagine that we're going to start to hear more about that. And somehow we're already hearing that she had some kind of emotional issues, maybe mental health issues. She was seeing some kind of doctor or counselor or something. But what do you make, Dr. DiBinga, of this Tennessee congressman who says, we can't do much about this, can't do anything about it? He says, in fact, if we try to do something about it, we're going to just mess it up, as if it's not already messed up.
There's two fronts to this. When we talk about that first aspect of what you're talking about, that statement that he made should be on every campaign, flyer, promotion, commercial, along with some of the other ignorant things that many of these politicians have said, who have basically had this mentality of we can't do anything. And we have to be mindful of the fact that, and I've been one of those people who said we can't do much, but we have to pay attention to what's been happening. For example, the NRA is not as rich as it used to be. Many Democrats a few years ago were getting A+ ratings from the NRA, and none of the Democrats are now. And there's been legislation that has been passed in different places. So we have been making progress. And so we can't quit as it relates to that. And we have to be on the offense and get these stories out there, because you read the quotation that he said. There's been other Congress people who've made statements. We have to make people never forget. And as it relates to the trans question that you brought up, I'm going to read this from Donald Trump Jr. Given the incredible rise of trans non-binary mass shooters in the last few years, by far the largest group committing as a percentage of population, maybe rather than talking about guns, we should be talking about lunatics pushing their gender-affirming BS, he said the full term, on our kids. Him, Marjorie Taylor Greene, all of these guys, they're already seizing on this to more deeply target the trans community with complete falsehoods. We know white cisgender males commit the majority of shootings, but some of these news outlets may not be talking about it as much, but these are more talking points for these Republicans, and we have to attack them because if they were saying these things about any other group, we'd be outraged. And just like we saw with CPAC a few weeks ago, they want this group to be exterminated. I'm not even over-exaggerating here. And we have to fight this, because the trans community, they're our community. They're human beings just like everybody else, and we can't let them get away with it.
Read that again, that false statement, that misstatement of facts, that complete lie that I'm trans people...
Right from the New Republic reported on, it said, given the incredible rise of trans non-binary mass shooters in the last few years, by far the largest group committing as a percentage of population, maybe rather than talking about guns, we should be talking about lunatics pushing their gender-affirming BS on our kids.
So here's where I want to go with that, Rafe. Okay, this news outlet prints that Donald Trump Jr. says it, as Dr. DiBinga said, Marjorie Taylor Greene, we know the list, but these people are in office because somebody voted for them and they got out of their primaries. So we can blame the MAGA folks for them getting out of their primaries. But once they get out the primaries, they're in a general election. So it's not just Republicans voting for them. We got to hold these voters accountable, because if we want to see change, we've got to vote that change. Who are these people that are electing just outright liars, outright, fabricators, people who are willing to tell lies to target the trans community? Are you more outraged? I don't know if I'm more outraged by the Marjorie Taylor Greenes of the world or the voters who voted her in office. What about those people? Why are we more outraged with them?
What's startling about all this is that the majority opinion on this, on every issue, is on the side of everything the two of you have so eloquently said, but it has yet to translate into majority power. And that's partly because of the system where you have the Senate, which favors rural states. You have the filibuster in the Senate. You have gerrymandering in the House. But the real problem is I'm not aware of any elected official who has ever lost their position in government on this issue. Whereas in 1970, a Democrat lost a race, Millard Tydings in Maryland, because of his support for gun control, and the entire country's axis shifted among politicians that it was too dangerous to support. It has to go to the point where people say, we're going to defeat you. If it takes us 10 years, we're going to, all you have to do is defeat a couple. And the echoes of that are massive. You can't change somebody's mind, to paraphrase a famous phrase, whose political interest depends on believing whatever it is they're saying, whether they believe it or not. But you can change anybody's mind in government if it could cost them their seat. It has not yet cost anybody their seat. That's what has to happen. One person, all it takes is one or two victories on that issue.
It's easy to get discouraged because when you see little kids getting shot and killed, and if that doesn't move people to want to take action, you think, my God, what is it going to take? And we've seen so many kids, you send your kid to school and literally a 9-year-old doesn't come home. I mean, it's just devastating. Continue this conversation when we come forward. After some news, sports, and traffic, our justice correspondent, Dion Raymond, is here for an inside look, day 3 of jury deliberation in the federal bribery trial of LA City Council member Mark Ridley Thomas. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
Martin in real time when we come forward.
Nashville, Tennessee school shooter are being honored by the Uvalde Foundation for Kids. In a media release, founder of the organization praised the officers for what they failed to do in Uvalde, referring to the elementary school shooting last year in which police hesitated to act for over an hour. And Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy is proposing a measure that would overturn President Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer weighed in on Twitter, calling the GOP's efforts cruel and callous. I'm Julius White on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Mission Hills, it's now a SIG alert on the 118 eastbound at the 405. That crash block in the carpool and the 2 left lanes. It stopped from Porter Ranch Drive. In Encino, 101 northbound, right after White Oak Avenue, got a disabled vehicle in the middle lane. You'll be hitting those brakes from Woodman Avenue. Pasadena, 210 west at the Lake Avenue off-ramp. Got a wreck on the right shoulder. And in Anaheim Hills, 91 to westbound before the 241. They're holding lanes, filling some potholes.
Progressive Commercial Insurance can protect your small business with over 30 coverage options, an easy-to-use mobile app, personalized discounts, and more. Get a quote in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Discounts and coverage selections not available in all states or situations.
JP Morgan Chase is building on the investments in California to help close the racial wealth gap and build a more equitable future. Visit jpmorganchase.com/racial equity and get the tools to help reach your financial goals.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Magic Johnson is getting closer to becoming a part owner of an NFL franchise. Magic and billionaire Josh Harris submitted a fully financed bid to buy the Washington Commanders. Current owner Dan Snyder is selling the team for a reported $6 billion. If the bid is accepted, it will be the highest purchase price for an NFL franchise in league history. Rob Walton, who started Walmart, paid $4.65 billion last year for the Denver Broncos. Magic and Harris will know if their bid is accepted at the next NFL owners meeting in May. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by Original Taco Pete.
Aaron from Original Taco Pete's here, inviting you to our newest location at 3272 West Slauson off Crenshaw for Taco Tuesday, only $175. Call 323-348-4441 to order.
Jai Person Lynn here with Person Lynn Law Office. As a fourth-generation Angelino, educated at Hampton University and Howard University School of Law, I understand the importance of upholding your human and civil rights whenever dealing with law enforcement. Whether facing a misdemeanor, felony, or infraction, I'm here to ease the stress and uncertainty that comes with an arrest or criminal charge. My team is dedicated to providing the best legal representation, and we will work with you at every step to ensure you are fully informed and your rights are protected. With nearly 2 decades of experience and a long track record of success, I will work diligently to ensure the best possible outcome. Call me as soon as you're aware of police contact at 424-261-2075. That's 424-261-2075. Person Lynn Law Office supports the right to a fair trial for Los Angeles Council member Mark Ridley Thomas.
California is a great place to live and work, but those aren't easy things to do for students also going to college. That's why the state created the Californians for All College Corps, a way for students to build skills and help others while earning up to $10,000 for school. Commit to serve your community and we'll help you pay for college. Spots will fill up fast, so learn more and apply today at www.cacollegecorps.com. That's www.cacollegecorps.com. California is a great place to live and work, but those aren't easy things to do for students also going to college. That's why the state created the Californians for All College Corps, a way for students to build skills and help others while earning up to $10,000 for school. Commit to serve your community and we'll help you pay for college. Spots will fill up fast, so learn more and apply today at www.cacollegecorps.com. That's www.cacollegecorps.com.
Thanks to our new sponsor, Lendistry. Lendistry is a national Black-led small business lender that is headquartered in Los Angeles. Lendistry helps small business owners access the affordable capital needed to grow. Visit Lendistry, lendistry.com/KBLA today.
I am back, and KBLA's justice correspondent Deon Raymond is joining me in this segment. This is our daily legal segment. We have been bringing you comprehensive coverage of the federal bribery trial involving LA City Council member Mark Ridley Thomas. And we are at the end of day 3 of jury deliberation. This was a 2-week trial where prosecutors alleged that there was a long trail of emails and proved that Mark Ridley Thomas and former dean of USC School of Social Work, Marilyn Flynn, had a quid pro quo arrangement in 2017 and 2018 in which the then dean arranged for Mark's son, Sebastian's, admission to USC, a full tuition scholarship, and a paid professorship in exchange for his father's support for county proposals that would ostensibly shore up the school's financial picture. According to the prosecutors, the dean of the school was facing some financial difficulties and was trying to get money into her school. Now, the defense attorney had a surgical response to the prosecution's case, calling 18 witnesses in 2 days. They countered that there was nothing illegal about the conduct and the actions of Mark Ridley Thomas. They focused in on the $100,000 transaction that Mark Ridley Thomas donated to USC that eventually was also donated to a nonprofit that his son was a part of. They said that this donation was legal. They put on an expert who also testified that there was nothing illegal about the contribution. And they also put on a slew of county witnesses to show what the county process is for contracts being approved. They debunked the allegations from the prosecution that this was an $8 million contract at issue and put on evidence in black and white, plain evidence that the contract, one of the contracts in question was actually only for $545,000, and that was over a 5-year period. So prosecution has been arguing this is a shut and closed case. There were emails, and then there was action. The defense has been arguing there's not a whole lot to see here. Well, clearly, both sides may have it partially right and partially wrong because the jury did not come back in 3 hours or 5 hours or 1 day or 2 days or even 3 days. They've been out for 3 entire days deliberating. And from the questions that have been asked, I think we're up to question number 7. There is no indication that this is going to end anytime soon. All right, Dion, you were inside that courthouse today, like you have been every day since this trial began. Tell us about some of the questions that were asked today by the jury and what they signal to you about whether this jury may be getting any closer to making a decision.
Well, first of all, Areva, I just want to thank you for that summary. It absolutely nails it, what has happened up to this very day. And we are on question number 6. The first one was trying to figure out whether something tangible has to be of value. And after that, and interestingly so, Areva, yesterday, the jury asked for a readback from Ann Ravel, the defense's expert on campaign finance laws. And then after that, they had a question about one of the jury instructions, the elements of one of the statutes. So what's really kind of tough about that is that we're talking about things, Areva, that people like you and I went to law school to understand and to study. So this is not an easy job for them. And today they wanted to know if there was a distinction between means and method and unlawful and illegal. And then after that, there was a question after they left, or well, it was put to the lawyers after they left, whether or not a breach of duty in and of itself is lawful. So this is what I think it signals to me, is that this is, in a snapshot, the kind of difficult things that jurors have to wrestle with. This is not an easy case. The facts of the case, all of the evidence, all of the testimony, the argument, and what it signals to us is that they are taking this very seriously. They are digging in and doing the work. And as you know, Areva, with the nature of juries, we don't know if this means there's one person who's kind of hanging things up one way or the other, or if it's one side against the other, or, you know, Areva, they sat there very dutifully and very patiently and very attentively listening to all of the evidence and all of the argument from beginning to end. And now it's their turn to, do their duty. And just one last point is that Darylyn Dury said in her closing argument, at this point, when you take the case, I am putting my client's care into your hands. And it landed so profoundly and impactfully. And I think they took that with them into the jury room. And I think, or I would like to hope as a lawyer, as a former trial attorney, that that's something that they are considering, that this individual's life is not with them.
Yeah, I think what's so puzzling to a lot of people, Dion, is that they read a lot of the media, they read a lot of the press, and it was very pro-prosecution. Let's be honest. If you look at some of the articles, even dating back to 2018 in the Los Angeles Times, for example, they pretty much said it was a shut and closed case. And that's the argument that the prosecution made during its closing argument. But that's not so clear. And I think the first indication of that to me was when I looked at the 9 witnesses that the prosecution called and saw that they didn't call one County of Los Angeles employee. And having had a lot of experience working with the County of Los Angeles, which is probably one of the largest county systems in the nation, 100,000 plus employees, I don't know, $36 billion, some astronomical budget. The fact that you could put on a case about county contracts and not have a county witness, and then have an FBI agent say on the witness stand that he didn't interview not a single solitary employee of Mark Ridley Thomas's because of this notion that somehow they were loyalists, that signaled to me that this was not the kind of case that you would expect. I had a friend say, this is not how she wants her tax dollars to be put to use if this is the kind of investigation that the FBI engages in. So how common is that, being a criminal trial lawyer yourself, to see the government put on a case and to not have interviewed everybody that could have information? Because, the government has an obligation to turn over exculpatory evidence. But I guess if you don't find the exculpatory evidence because you don't ask the right people, there's nothing to turn over. So
what's worse is that they had it. They had it. And the defense said in their opening that that part of the issue in this case is that the government was not going to show them the other side or all of the evidence. They said that in their opening. They showed that in cross-examination. They showed that in their case, and they highlighted it in their closing using the government's own timeline that was put together by the FBI agent and just inserting all of the information that they selectively omitted. Areva, given the resources of the government and the training of an FBI agent, it's a huge failing. It's a huge flaw. And I believe that they had a duty and a responsibility to fundamentally do a basically good, sound investigation. And it was clear from the moment that they cross-examined Special Agent Atkins that they failed in that regard.
Yeah, this isn't about, trophies or wins. This is supposed to be about getting to the truth and instilling confidence in the public, in our law enforcement agencies. And, the FBI is supposed to be the creme de la creme of law enforcement agencies, as is the Justice Department. So I'm not only, looking at those agents that did this shoddy investigation, but also those lawyers, because those lawyers are supposed to be some of the best and the brightest in our legal system. So they know what a good investigation looks like. And I'm sure somebody's boss is back at the office and heads are rolling about some of the flaws that were revealed in their case. Well, it is, again, the end of day 3 in the federal bribery trial of LA City Council member Mark Ridley Thomas, and there is still no verdict. Tomorrow, day 4 of jury deliberation, Dion Raymond, KBLA's justice correspondent, will be back in that courthouse. And the minute we get news from Dion that there's a verdict that's been reached, presuming that it happens on day 4, but there are no time limits. Juries can stay out as long as they choose to stay out. So we can't guarantee that we're going to have different news tomorrow about the verdict, but we can guarantee you that you will hear it on KBLA first. Thanks, Dion, for always giving us the best and great reporting. And we will see you tomorrow when we come forward. More of today's trending news with my expert contributors right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's the real deal in real time. You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
Taking up space in the political sphere, but Black women still have yet to really make their mark. This is Maisha Cairo with your K-Black Minute News, brought to you by Lendistry. Story courtesy of CaliforniaBlackMedia.org. On International Women's Day, the Public Policy Institute of California held the Women in California's Legislature Luncheon. Assemblymember Tina McKinner from Inglewood headed to Sacramento to sit on the panel. The woman-led panel discussed California's future and their essential roles in shaping governmental policies. This year's class of legislators held the largest number of women in state history, with 18 senators and 32 assembly members. And although Black women are 8% of the 15% population of women in the country, they only fill 300 of the 7,000 state legislature seats across the U.S. McKenna made sure to emphasize the importance of this event and of women in color in politics, stating women bring diversity to the table due to the ways we take care of our families. I'm Maisha Cairo, and that's your K-Black Minute on KBLA Talk 1580.
Law Office of J. Blacknell understands the stress and anxiety that comes with legal issues. That's why we support the right to a fair trial for Los Angeles Councilmember Mark Ridley Thomas. Do you have a criminal or civil rights matter? If so, please give us a call, 310-469-9117.
Personal in Law Office is your go-to attorney for criminal cases. That's why we support the right to a fair trial for Los Angeles Councilmember Mark Ridley Thomas. Call me at 424-261-2075 if you're facing any criminal offenses.
Gifted and black. At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jarrett Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of Black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of Black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring Black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
I'm back, and we are following today's trending news with my expert contributors, Dr. Omekongo DiBinga from American University and Raphael Sonenshein, who is a director over at Cal State LA. He's involved in everything public policy. And we were talking earlier about who's going to be in this Republican race to be the president of the United States in 2024, who has the best chance of beating Donald Trump. So we got to talk about his former VP, Mike Pence, because today a federal judge said to Mike Pence, dude, you can't just tell your story in a book where you get a big advance and make lots of money on royalties. You've got to show up at a federal grand jury and tell us about this pressure campaign that Donald Trump was putting on you in the days leading up to the January 6th insurrection. Let me ask you this, Dr. DiBinga. How can Mike Pence even think that he has a chance of being the president of the United States when he won't cooperate with the United States? I mean, he wants to be the leader of the country, but one arm of the country, the judicial branch, or the executive branch, I guess the Department of Justice is under the executive branch, is saying, dude, we need your testimony.
I mean, who does he think is going to vote for him? He doesn't have the Trump base. I mean, look at the way he's turned his back on law enforcement, and look at the way he's turned his back on any sensible Republicans. I mean, this man, he sold out his staff because so many of them have gone to testify before the January 6th commission. He didn't do that. He's been asked to speak in many different areas and venues and outright condemn Trump. And the first time he does it is at a private dinner behind closed doors. And really, at the end of the day, he's been a coward all along, and he expects to be praised as some American hero for doing the right thing on January 6th. But he knew what was coming beforehand. He was in all of these conversations. That's why he didn't decide to get in the car. I mean, his own family was in jeopardy that day. People were out there. They weren't chanting, hang anybody else on this panel. They were chanting, hang Mike Pence. They came for you. And so this guy has sold out law enforcement. He sold out his staff. He sold out the American people. And Trump's base is not going to support him. So he thinks he's some larger than holier than thou figure that's going to come up here and really make change in society. He has no chance and no choice but to go and testify now. And I'm looking forward to what he has to say. But quite honestly, just like Nikki Haley, anybody who's out there trying to thread the needle about how great America can be and how we need to move forward and won't go directly after Trump has no business running for office.
Yeah, it just is really offensive right now. Let me be clear. This judge in a ruling that remains unsealed said that he can still decline, that's Mike Pence, can decline to answer questions related to his actions on January 6th itself when he was serving as president of the Senate for the certification of the 2020 presidential election. But we know what the special counsel, Jack Smith, is really interested in is what those conversations were like leading up to January 6th, where Trump was telling him he had all this power that he didn't have, that he could, single-handedly decide who was going to be the president of the United States. What do you make of him, saying, first of all, he said the vice president should not have to testify against the president. He says that's vice presidential or something, some theory about it, that obviously this federal judge has rejected. But do you feel like Dr. DiBinga that he has no business even running for president?
What is these called? Profiles in Almost Having Courage. I think that would be a wonderful book, which is, I think he's trying to be clever by having them force him to testify against his will, fight like crazy, and say, oh my God, I have no choice. I've got to throw Donald Trump under the bus. Hope Donald Trump gets indicted. Hopes he goes to jail and loses all of his friends. Now,
that's your theory that this is all very strategically being
but
planned.
Bad strategy. It's like a terrible strategy. It's why Pence was such a flop in Indiana. The Republicans were so happy he was on the ticket because it got him out of Indiana. And the only way to do this is to be Chris Christie, but not be Chris Christie. Can I tell you a story? I love stories. 1968, Hubert Humphrey was considered the kind of weasel vice president of Lyndon Johnson, terrified of LBJ on Vietnam, wouldn't go against him. About a week before the election, he called for a halt in the bombing, and his polling skyrocketed. He almost won that election because he dug deep inside and said, the only way out of this is to go forward with everything I've got and break with the president. And it wasn't brilliant. It was like done with heart. You got to do that. Pence doesn't have that in him. He wants to be kind of forced to back in to throw the president over and hope nobody notices that he did it. And with Trump, it doesn't work. As everybody knows, the only way to beat Trump is to risk your political life, go right at him, and just go right at him with everything you've got. And that's the only way you'll ever get the kind of respect in the Republican Party. I know it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, it's the Republican Party. It's not kind of a normal place right now. But if somebody did that, who knows what would happen?
Let me ask you this. There are some polls suggest that Trump only has a hold on about 30 to 35% of the Republican Party. So if you believe that poll, that means there's a whole lot of party out there that's not supporting Donald Trump. Do you think those numbers are wrong? Do you think the support in the Republican Party is much higher than that 30 to 35%?
I just think people compare the two parties as if they're similar. His 30% beats everybody else's share of 70% because they only are for Donald Trump, not even for the Republican Party. And the other parts of the party are going to go along because they're the ones who drive the party. And at the end of the day, I still think unless somebody just flat out challenges him directly, he just coasts to his 30%, by the way, in the Republican primary system, 30% was more than enough for him to win in 2016 in a runaway. But it's a runaway when nobody takes you on. And taking on Marco Rubio, by the way, which I think you and I could take on Marco Rubio, and we wouldn't even have to prepare very much. I mean, he'll fold like a house of cards. Donald Trump doesn't fold, but he also is not unbeatable.
That's what's so remarkable about this, Dr. DiBinga. Here are these guys. Oh, my God, they're so tough. They talk so much. I mean, look at Cruz. Good example, right? Oh, my God. Goodness. He gave Ketanji Brown Jackson the worst time ever. And I think he was probably still smarting, remembering when they were law students at Harvard together, she probably was kicking his butt in some classes or something. And he was getting revenge on her, right? Here he is, a U.S. senator. So, I mean, he was a bully. Let's just call it what it was. He was a bully. But yet Donald Trump talks about their daddies, their mamas, their wives. I mean, he just goes all in. He gets so personal, and yet they shrink, they melt, they cower. They just, I've never seen grown men so afraid of another grown man. I mean, it's just remarkable. The kind of power he has over them.
Absolutely. And because they all want control of that base. I mean, you can even see what's going on with Fox, where people like Tucker Carlson and the techs talk about how much they hate Trump, but Hannity had him on just the other night. It's that base that they want. And if the Republicans were strategic, they would change their primary results or contest to something where people have to get like 50% of the vote, or not just the largest. And that would easily take care of Trump in one way, shape, or form, because as long as he has that base that's going to ride with him until the end, he can keep doing this. And even with many of these indictments, as long as the federal indictments don't come, it doesn't matter how many indictments can come from the different states, he can still run. And that's why they are scared of him, because he is dangerous at every level. And he has shown that his followers, they will come for you physically, violently, or they will come for you by not supporting you if you don't kiss the ring. And so the way he's taken over the party, it's really extremely strategic. But we've seen this before. I mean, Hitler won with 1/3 of the vote. So people didn't take him seriously at first. And so if we learn from history, we can learn a lot of ways on how to defeat Trump right now.
That is such a good point, because, that's what the Dems have done, right? We are changing our primary system to make it easier for people of color, for women to get a leg up in the primary. We're saying bye Iowa, bye. We're saying bye New Hampshire. We're saying we're going to states where there are more minority voters, where there are greater opportunities for minority candidates, non-traditional candidates, to have success early on. The Republicans need to take a page out of the Democratic Party's playbook and figure out, as you said, how to take control, reclaim control of their party, because they are going to lose again in 2024. I predict they're going to lose the House. I think we're going to hold on to the Senate. I think they're going to lose the White House again. And now maybe some of them watching this show are going to say, "Wow, that professor from American University had a good point there. Let's go figure out what the Democrats did to make it easier for certain kinds of candidates to get through their primaries." But you're right. But the Republican Party leader right now is, what is she? The niece of Mitt Romney, but a sycophant to Donald Trump. So they'd have to get rid of her too. So they got some pieces on the chessboard to move around before they can really do much with the Republican Party. But thanks to both of you. Great insights, Dr. DiBinga. Always good to see you. Tell us about this book that's coming out. Where can we find it and when?
Yes, Lies About Black People, How to Combat Racist Stereotypes and Why It Matters. The pre-order is out everywhere. For it's written by Michael Eric Dyson. It's been endorsed by great individuals like the incomparable Areva Martin. Thank you so much. And this is a book for anyone who wants to get out there and do this work and be anti-racist and be upstanders and not bystanders. Wherever books are sold, it's out in July. You can order it today.
Fantastic. Well, of course, we'll have to have you back. We'll have you back lots before July, but definitely can't wait to get my hands on it and want to have you back to talk about it. Always a pleasure. Ralph Sonenshein, doing great work over at Cal State LA. Always a pleasure, my friend, to see you.
Thank you.
I do believe this was the dream team. Thanks, guys.
Right, no doubt.
Good to see you again.
All right, after some news, sports, and traffic, we are going all in on the Jussie Smollett case and this breaking story by a investigative journalist and podcast host. They say they got the receipts on what really happened on that cold night in Chicago. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.